Welcome back to Passionate About Music Education, a channel dedicated to you, the music educator. Hi, I'm Rachel Hardman. Today I'm going to share some advice for our vocal teachers who may be finding themselves being asked to run an instrumental program for the first time. We've all been in that situation, particularly when we're working in small departments, where we are asked to take over activities that are outside of our training. So if you've specialised as a vocal teacher, you might find taking over the instrumental program quite daunting and worried about how to do that well. Well, let me assure you that you already have many fantastic skills in your toolkit that you can transfer over from running a choral program or a vocal program or a vocal studio over to supporting our instrumental students. So let's dive in with some tips that you can use straight away within the classroom that I know that work and create a successful program. First of all, you'll find a difference between how your instrumentalists approach learning music to your singers. Our vocal students tend to be much better at exploring on the internet and finding their artists and listening to lots of different singers because they tend to sing along with their favourite artist. Our instrumentalists aren't as good at doing that. They don't tend to go away and listen to other clarinet players or other trumpet players, not until they become more advanced. So of course the danger with that is they're really not listening to what a great clarinet player should sound like or a great trumpet player should sound like, other than maybe whoever's teaching them in the classroom or having their instrumental lesson with. We know that to develop our voice as an instrumentalist or as a vocalist, we need to be listening to lots of different artists to hear what our instrument should sound like at that professional level. So one of the most important skills is to really try and improve your listening skills of your instrumentalists by playing them in lessons, performances of bands and soloists, instrumentalists of their own instrument, different instrumentalists from different sections of the band or the orchestra, so they start to understand what they could sound like, what they should be trying to aspire to. It's also great to play music that they wouldn't expect. There's a flute player who beatboxes, and goes around New York touring. So it's not just showing them musicians from the past or just from the classical genre, but also musicians who are young, vibrant in their, making a career at this very moment. So our students understand that actually playing the clarinet's pretty cool and that they can go and play in different genres and sound like this person or this person. You can set this as a classroom activity, but maybe you do it as a warm-up, you come in and they watch some performances or a performance of the piece that you're learning. That's always good. Or maybe looking at other schools who are performing that piece on YouTube and then sharing it with the students. Or you could actually set them projects. I remember setting a challenge for my school orchestra, and it was that they had to go away and find a performer that played their instrument and do a research and come and present it, and they had a great fun because it became a competition challenge of who was the quickest section to do that. And actually our percussionist won, and they were thrilled that they had done that. So you can turn that into, a fun activity, a fun project that, could be a written assignment that, you could use within assessment. It's also really important that the students listen to each other. Another skill that when they're sort of focused on trying to play the right notes and the right rhythm in their part, and they're trying to make their instrument work, particularly as a beginner, that they don't really listen to what's going on around them. They're not really aware of who's got the melody. Are they playing the harmony? Are they playing the bass line? So they're very much focused on their own independent part. One of my favourite exercises is, if you've got your band, is for them to pick up their part and go and sit next to somebody else who plays a different instrument. So if I'm playing the clarinet, I get up and I go and sit next to a trumpet player or a flute player. I go and sit in a different part of the band and we perform that piece. It really makes them focus not only on being able to play their part confidently without the other 4 trumpet players or the other 4 clarinet players, but it also means that they suddenly hear what the flute's playing and go, oh, that's what they're playing. I didn't really ever listen to that part because I'm so focused on mine. Oh, actually the flute and I are playing quite a lot of melody together. So they start to really listen to each other. So again, look for ways that you can encourage your students in the rehearsal to develop their listening skills, particularly with their instrument and how to blend, in a way that our vocalists tend to already have that. So my next tip is, how do you help your instrumentalist with music reading, particularly when you're doing ensemble work within the classroom? Most of our singers tend to focus on the storytelling and the reading of the lyrics and performance of the lyrics. They're not as focused on the note reading and the rhythm reading, more focused on the performance element of the song, the lyrics. So one of the differences you'll find is when you come to teach your band students, they are really focused on the pitch. They focus on pitch more than rhythm and more than any of the other elements that are on the page, the tempo, the dynamics, the expressions, the slurs, etc. They are really focused on the pitch, and that's generally because that's how we approach teaching the instruments. Like, here's how to play E, here's how to play D, here's how to play C, and it's on the stave. And then we might go, wow, that's a 4-beat note, so you have to hold it for 4 and work on your airflow. So when you are bringing in a new piece of music for your band or orchestra or your chamber group, they will generally focus specifically on the pitch. That will be their strongest element, and every other area will be something that needs more development. This also is very true for students who do one-to-one lessons, who do the ABRSM, where they have to work on sight reading skills. You always find that they totally focus on the pitch and they miss everything else on the page, particularly the rhythm. And that's where they lose their marks. So one of the exercises that you can bring into your band program is really get them to focus, like in the rehearsals, on just rhythm reading. So you can create your own rhythm reading sheet, keep them all playing a unison note or concert B flat, whichever, however you want to make it sound. Give them a 4-bar pattern, have a bar rest, then give them a new 4-bar pattern, so that they, as an ensemble, work on rhythm reading, particularly rhythms that are tricky that they might find in that piece, and also they're really listening to each other to play together as an ensemble. It's a really great strategy for doing sort of two things: improving rhythm reading without worrying about pitch, but also improving their listening skills of playing those rhythms together, because often in those beginner band, intermediate band pieces or orchestral pieces, they are playing quite a lot of unison rhythm, but they're not necessarily really listening to each other. So this is a great skill that you can try in class. My next tip is really got some links with our vocal program. So if you're performing in a choir, generally with SATB, the soprano part, although it's high, it's generally the melody, and the alto, tenor and bass are the harmony parts. And as an experienced vocalist, you'll know that it takes longer to learn the alto part or the tenor part than it does the soprano, because of having to sing all those, harmony notes or accidental notes, or the rhythms aren't quite matching the melody and you have to hold them. This is true for your beginner and intermediate band program. The kind of concept is the same. So you'll have the melody on the trumpet, so you'll have the melody on clarinet one, or the flutes, or the oboe, or the violin one, and everybody else gets all the harmony parts. But what we tend to find is our weaker students, our beginner students, tend to be sat on part 3 clarinet or part 2 clarinet. So the biggest challenge with helping them is making sure that they are counting correctly, because they haven't got the melody, and that they're also playing all the accidentals that will turn up in that part. So often with clarinet 3, you will have more the interesting harmony part, but not necessarily the student on there who knows how to play a C sharp or a B flat down to a B natural and then to an A sharp. There's a lot of that. They might just know it as a B flat but don't know it as an A sharp. So when you're taking over that ensemble as a vocal coach, watch out for those areas, because that's where the students really struggle in terms of reading, because we tend to have our less experienced students on parts 2 and 3, and that's the same not just for clarinets, it'll be for string players, it'll be for your brass players, and they tend to not know those accidentals and harmonic names, and struggle sometimes to count accurately if the rhythm is different to the melody. Tip 4 is about making sure that your students know how to look after their instrument, how to keep it hygienic, and how to, put it away safely, clean the mouthpiece, not to have that reed that lasts for, 6 months and is kind of falling to bits and is kind of disgusting brown colour looking. That obviously takes a bit of time to learn how to do that, and there are lots of people who will help you with, you know, how reed placement and, you know, making sure those mouthpieces are clean and the children are cleaning their instrument. But it's really important to understand about the hygiene of the instrument, the care of the instrument, so it works well, so your students make progress. Sometimes small things like on the flute, the keys get slightly bent so that it doesn't blow easily, and then the student thinks that they're having a problem playing, but it's actually because the instrument is slightly out of line, and with just a tiny bit of adjustment that flute will play again. So make sure that you have yourself a great repairer that you can send students to when the instrument's got a problem, because that will really help your parents know how to get it fixed quickly. You don't necessarily need to tune straight away, you know, because the instruments are cold and it might take them, you know, a few minutes for them to warm up. But it's important to tune up within the rehearsal, and definitely tune up in the concert. Just that will make your ensemble sound much better, even if they're playing, you know, the odd wrong note. Same for string players. Try to get it to the point where you're just tuning the fine adjusters as opposed to messing around with the pegs. Oh my gosh, they slip, particularly on beginner, not so good quality instruments. They're a nightmare. Be careful not to twist them too much too quickly, because it snapped the string. Oh, you know, these are all challenges that you will have and overcome, but they, you know, they keep us on our toes as musicians and music teachers, teaching instruments that are not our first instrument. And my last tip is again linked with what you already know as a vocalist, which is about posture and the importance of the breath. That really does correlate with all your woodwind and brass instruments. If they haven't got good posture and they're not really breathing properly, then the instrument doesn't work, they get frustrated, and then we get the I don't want to play the clarinet anymore because I can't do it. Whereas actually it's just fixing a posture, fixing how they hold the instrument, and making sure that they breathe correctly. That should be something that you're talking about very frequently in your lessons, particularly with our beginners and intermediate students. Those saxophone players hate having their strap up, because they should have the strap higher up so their mouthpiece is in line with their mouth. They really hate it, so they'll have it halfway down and they'll be dipping their head, and of course it changes the embouchure, changes the flow of the windpipe and the air. So it's really important that we kind of help them with their posture, but also to stop any potential injury that they could have going forward, which stops them enjoying playing a musical instrument. Don't be afraid to use all the wonderful knowledge you have as a vocalist about airways, about breathing, about tone and long notes and warm-ups. Bring that into your instrumental program, bring that into the classroom, because the majority of the students are going to need that same knowledge to play their musical instrument. With your string players and your percussionists, of course, they're not necessarily breathing to play their instrument, but that idea of phrasing and how that works, thinking about that, and how we do that as a singer with our, you know, breath, that can easily be applied to their musical phrasing. And then again, it's thinking about posture, how they sit when they're playing their violin, how they're holding their bow. Are they dipping? Are they leaning forward? How high is their music stand? Are they bending to look down, or is the music in line? All of that good technique is something that you already have as a vocalist that can easily be brought into the classroom without it becoming something to worry about. I hope you found this helpful, and I'd love to know which tip resonates the most with you, and which tips that you use in the classroom that you'd like to share with our community. We're a community here on Passionate About Music Education. I look forward to seeing you again here on Passionate About Music Education.